Now, I'm super, super, super excited, y'all, to introduce you to our speaker. So Brian Wenke is the executive director and CEO of It Gets Better. You might remember this from a couple, I think it was about 10 years ago, when this movement and this message started to get out there. So as the executive director, Brian has led the global storytelling effort to empower LGBTQ plus youth since 2016. Now, Brian has spearheaded multinational campaigns to connect and engage with LGBTQ plus youth where they live, work, and socialize, and has successfully leveraged corporate and institutional partnerships to expand the It Gets Better project's reach. This now spans 4 continents, 8 languages, super, super impressive stuff. Now, Brian is a proud alumnus of the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. As a fellow Ohioan, super, super happy to see the University of Cincinnati represented. Go Bearcats. He also has education at Brandman University, where he got his MBA. And Brian currently resides in Los Angeles, California. Brian, I'm really, really excited to dig in. But before we do, is there anything else that you would like our audience to know about you today? Maybe something I missed when putting together your bio.
Oh, good. No, goodness. And I absolutely despise talking about myself, but that's great. You did a fantastic job. I'm just very happy to be here and happy to be here on the heels of Danica Rome. Wow, what an honor to catch the tail end of such an inspiring person. So that's great.
You are not kidding. Today kind of felt like a Monday to me. We were off yesterday for Juneteenth. It's a holiday throughout Power to Fly. And even coming into my Tuesday/Monday, that was an amazing, amazing person to get to hear speak. Especially somebody that I've seen on the national stage so often, but never been kind of this close to greatness, and so excited to see such fabulous representation. All right, so you are the director of the very well-known global initiative, the It Gets Better project. Now, I know that you have described this as a storytelling effort. Can you share with us a little about what is so powerful about storytelling that it helps to spark momentum and drive change?
It's funny, there's a lot of talk about the importance of storytelling of late, but it's really one of the most ancient forms of information delivery. It's nothing new. We've just found new ways to dissect it and to uncover its importance. But I think, what science has told us about, a well-constructed story is that it not only has the ability to deliver information, but it has the ability to anchor that information and fuel change. And, we can actually have physiological responses when we hear a good emotion-packed story. I was just at a wedding last weekend, and that's the perfect example. And here you have 2 people that are sharing in a very vulnerable way in front of all of their friends and family, how they met, why they love each other. And, tears are flowing, and that's contagious. I always cry at weddings because it's so intense, and that's the ultimate storytelling environment. But also making it a little more sort of maybe I guess mainstream in terms of mass media. Top Gun, for example, Top Gun, there's some argue that is just a military recruitment ad, a glorified military recruitment ad. And if you go back to the original in 1986, there was a 500% uptick in applications for the Navy, directly correlated to the release of that film. And so, stories have an incredible ability to make us do things. And even when you go back to the physiological response, crying, or if you've watched somebody dancing, have you twitched with them, or who twitched at the lift in Dirty Dancing at the end because they were just so into it. So stories have power, and it's the main vehicle that we have to communicate with one another and to share this very complex experience of life. So
Yes.
that's me romanticizing storytelling.
No, I think you're exactly right. And I also sympathize. I am very much a person that cries at weddings. It's become more of a problem as I've started officiating weddings. So I've had to try and kind of compartmentalize these feelings. But yeah, you're right. It is learning something is great and important, but if you are able to anchor it to something that has touched you the way storytelling can, it very much makes it much more a part of you, and less something that, yeah, and now it's kind of discarded or goes by the wayside. And I think you're right. I mean, the idea of that physiological response, I mean, like, I have it all the time. I get goosebumps, or like kind of the hair on your arms start to like prick up, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be good. And it's a wonderful feeling. Let's rewind a little bit. I want to talk about what the impetus was for starting the It Gets Better project, as well as its message. Now, I came to know about it via, oh God, I'm not going to remember his name, Dan Savage. Through his very long running column series. But tell us more about it. Tell us more about like what started it.
Well, Dan Savage and his now husband, Terry Miller, were the founders of our organization. And it was kind of a dark time for queer youth. And we, in September of 2010, there were a slate of highly publicized young people dying from suicide, many of them identifying as LGBTQ plus, or perceived to be identifying as LGBTQ plus, and suffering tremendous amounts of bullying in the lead up to their death. And so, one death in particular, Billy Lucas, was bullied. He was bullied mercilessly while he was alive, and the bullying continued after he had passed on his social media channels. And so, there was outrage coupled with that. And Dan and Terry were like, God, if we had just 5 minutes with any of these kids, maybe we would have been able to impart the wisdom that they're not alone, that there is a future for them, and this is a temporary thing just to get them to the next day. But they knew that time was of the essence, and getting permission from schools to go speak, or from parents, like that just wasn't going to happen fast enough. And so they turned to social media. YouTube is the platform that we were born on. And at the time, it wasn't really known. I mean, I say this jokingly, but it was a place where you went to go see cat videos, right? It wasn't a platform that was known for being this amazing vehicle for social change. And so the story was very simple. It was just Dan and Terry sitting in front of the camera, interview style, talking about the bullying and the traumas that they had experienced in the process of their sexual orientation and gender identity development, and then outlaid the path on what they did to get past that and how their life ultimately got better. And then they asked other people to do the same. But within 3 days, that video was viral and our movement was born. And that campaign was essentially the Ice Bucket Challenge of its day. And inspired more than 70,000 people, like from the LGBTQ plus community and allies, to share their stories, to impart the wisdom to LGBTQ plus youth that yes, this is a difficult time, but you have tremendous potential. There is a future where you are loved and embraced, and there's a community out here waiting for you. And today, the social media campaign, all of them have a lifespan. And so what we've really moved in sort of like the proactive storytelling space, and we are still the largest storytelling effort to empower LGBTQ plus youth around the world. But now it's more proactive, and we have a string of other programs and services that we offer as well, like education, like a global network, which thank you, you mentioned earlier. Yeah, we're on 4 continents, and right now our network is comprised of 19 affiliate organizations, many of them in Latin America, all telling stories for the betterment of LGBTQ plus youth people in their communities.
Well, I'm already having another physiological response to all of this. And it doesn't matter that I lived through all of this and saw it happening at the time. I remember watching it, and as somebody, like, I'm white, cisgender, heterosexual, this was not a video for me, right? But I remember having such a powerful response to this, imagining if it only helped one person, because you're right. Like, even we think 2010, right? And it's 12 years ago, and it's both yesterday and a million years away, right? Because like, we are talking about a time where representation, especially of of gay people outside of the media, right? Like there were actors that were out, there were some actresses, there were, musicians, and that was all fabulous and all absolutely things that need to happen. But there was not a huge voice coming from people who are regular people that live their lives, people that might have been your neighbors or might have been your coworkers. And you're right, not everyone has that access to see what it looks like to be gay as an adult, what it looks like to live your truth, because that's who you are. And so, yes, that representation on, high levels and in the upper echelons of stardom is important, but it's just as important to show people that, like, it sucked for me. It will get better for you. Like that is that personal, that personal experience. It really does resonate with people. I see it all the time when people come on and talk to me about something that really means something to them. They light up. They absolutely do. And it's wonderful. And you're right. It is very much part of that storytelling. How much are you connected to the narrative or to the message that you're talking about? How much does it mean to you? And that's why you want to share it with other people. Do you think that the message of the It Gets Better project has changed at all over that time? Because you said at first it was very, not necessarily reactive, but like kind of in panic mode, like we got to get something out there to help these kids. Do you think that in the more proactive directions that the project has taken, do you think that the message has changed at all?
Sure. Everything evolves. Like young people today are vastly different than where they were 10 years ago. But like, to your point though, yes, we have evolved. And that was a very reactionary campaign. Like we just need to get this message out there as quickly as possible. But as we've evolved, as our audience has evolved, and how they consume media and what they want to see, our storytelling initiatives have evolved as well. And we really see ourselves at that early stage of personal development, specifically in the realm of sexual orientation and gender identity. And our goal today is to get in front of kids before they're in crisis and to make sure that they understand what is available to them in terms of community support and the other direct service providers that are out there to help them on their way before they're in crisis. So we see ourselves very much as a preventative, and we often see ourselves as sort of like this surrogate provisioner of information, because even in a best case scenario where a young queer person is in a family or a friend setting or a guardianship where they are accepted, where there is love and support, not everyone understands. There's no class about how to be LGBTQ plus, and there's no class on what they're going to experience. And so we want to be that support system to help young queer people navigate their sexual orientation and gender identity in a healthy and positive way. And so that's sort of how we've evolved. And of course, when your point about everyday people versus celebrities, even to this day, celebrities have influence. Like there's a whole, like there's no
and there's a lot of
that.
there's a lot of really great things that have come from this, right? Of celebrities being able to like have a platform that brings them closer to their fans. And so then they are more, more communicative there. And you're right. I mean, it's huge, and that's great too. Sorry, I interrupted you. But
No. I was just going to say, like, it's just that I think like kids today just want to hear from other kids. They want to hear from their peer groups. And it's not that they're kind of not into the cross-generational kind of story exchange. They're into that too. But they also just want to hear from people that are just like them. And that's why we will never be done telling stories, because our goal is to make sure that there's a story for every single young queer person. And there are millions upon millions upon millions of them. That being said, we are in business to put ourselves out of business. This is not something that we want to like prolong indefinitely, right?
Yes.
Like, but we have a long way to go until we get to a world where all LGBTQ plus youth are free to live equally and know their worthiness and power as individuals. But we're on our way.
That's honestly absolutely noble goals. And you're right. I mean, it is something to make sure that those stories and that representation is visible to people. I mean, going through like being a child and going through your adolescence and becoming an adult is hard enough, y'all. Like it is hard for everyone. But when you add that extra layer of like, it's not just you thinking that you're horrible. I spent like basically from like what 12 to 22 convinced that like I'm terrible. I just need to tear this all down and figure out something else. This isn't working. And it's quite another thing to have that in any way echoed or bolstered from outside influences, right? It's not like you don't need to make it any harder by preventing kids from understanding it's okay. It's okay to not fit the mold. It's okay to like who you like. That is fine. And so I think that you're right. I mean, it's hugely impactful. So a lot of what we're hearing, especially recently, when it comes to conversations around LGBTQIA plus individuals, is regarding anti-gay legislation. There's a ton of hashtags out there, say gay every day. There's a whole bunch of them going on. But can you tell us about how the It Gets Better project is working to combat that kind of legislation as we're seeing it kind of all around us?
Well, it's like the It Gets Better project has never traditionally been an advocacy-based organization. We're not lobbying Congress. Like, we're very focused on finding new and creative ways to effectively engage with young queer people. But to that end, a good example of what we're doing to kind of bolster sort of the cultural side of what passing legislation is very easy to track. It's like, yes, this is supportive of our community. No, it's not. But laws, as we've seen, laws don't guarantee that culture doesn't always rise to meet our laws. And so what we like to do, and for example, we're about ready to announce a huge slate of grants. We identified 50 schools in 40 states and the District of Columbia. All of them are receiving grants of up to $10,000 to support specifically their LGBTQ plus youth student populations. And those grants were based on proposals from queer or allied students. So in partnership with their educators or school administrators. So it's very much putting control in the hands of LGBTQ plus youth who know what their local community needs. But I gotta say, like, there are some incredible voices that are surfacing in opposition to this sweeping, array of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. And at the It Gets Better project, like we will help keep hope alive through our storytelling initiatives, but being able to support and put resources in the hands of young people that are in those communities that are directly impacted is where we feel we can be the most effective.
I mean, it all comes from the kids, right? They're going to save the world, and I cannot wait
Seriously.
to both see it and support it. I'm well past my teens. I'm well past the age. I mean, granted, I don't think I was relatable once I got to like 22. But like, I'm well past that age where like people like, kids don't want to know what I have to say about things. And you're right that having that conversation be supported and being told and being had between kids who are going through similar things is much more impactful, right? Because you want to know that you're not alone in this. And it's one thing to have that support come from the top down. It's one thing to have like school programs or administrators that support this, or having it come from your parents. But it's quite another to have that community, right? To be able to build that group around you that also understands what you're going through, that you can all lean on each other for support and uplift each other and teach each other what's going on with each of you. We had a speaker earlier today that said, you are the only person in the world that is an expert on you. So I'm the only person that's an expert on Meg. That does not necessarily bode well for my expert status, because I feel like I'm very confused most of the time. But I love this idea, right? But I love this idea that like if we're all our own, like the experts on ourselves, and allow these people to direct what education they think they need, allow them to direct the support. That's so cool. So when we talk about some of the potential impacts of a lot of this legislation, it ranges from very, very like, kind of far and wide topics within general life, right? I mean, we saw like bathroom bills coming out of North Carolina. There's, trans bills that are being passed in Texas, unfortunately, like all kinds of stuff. So what do you think that business leaders can do to help support, empower, and uplift youth who are affected by such legislation?
Oof. So I've answered this question a lot, and I'm going to kind of like tiptoe into it carefully. Um, we need business leaders. I work a lot with brands. They have incredible influence and impact, and I don't want that to be lost on a lot of the messaging that's coming out now about how, you know, brands are just pandering to the community. It's Pride Month, just slap a rainbow on something to sell some widgets,
Rainbow washing, all of this. Yeah.
yeah. And I think what I always advise, especially newbies, like folks that are like, we have some resources, we want to leverage them, we want to support this community. This community is important to our work. And so what can we do to support? I'm always like, find your lane, right? There are a lot of issues that the LGBTQ plus community, especially youth, are facing. You can't be all things. You can't effectively address all things. So pick one thing. If your priority is uplifting women, there's a ton of intersectionality with the queer community. Like, I think if you're about inclusive curriculum, great. If you want to support trans athletes, that's another issue. And so I recommend any leader to just kind of take a look and educate themselves on all of these issues, understanding that if they go deep on one, that's going to be much more appreciated than just scratching the surface on all of them and kind of being clumsy along the way. But like when those lanes are determined, like partnering with a nonprofit that has direct access to those specific issues is going to be of incredible importance and value. You don't have to figure it all out, but I do highly recommend working with organizations that are in it every single day. And so there's a lot of that's what I love the most about my work, is being able to collaborate. And look, I get it. For-profit entities, they have bottom lines that they have to address.
Yeah.
We do too at nonprofits. And so like the goal here is like, we know you want to do good, but we also know you've got like some stakeholders to appease. So let's find some common ground where we both get our needs addressed, because a nonprofit can help you navigate the community in a much more effective way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, we've talked to a lot of people today. We had somebody who was a disability advocate, another person who was an advocate in terms of asexual, agender, aromantic, and demisexual individuals. So, I mean, like you can break it down on a quite granular level and find, the things that really resonate with you. What, you want to do something for the community, but what is it that you connect with? And then, like you said, go to people who are already in the arena. We saw this a lot with a lot of the Black Lives Matter movements, where white people wanted to get involved, but y'all, we had some work to do on learning to sit backseat, right? Learning to like leave the people that need to be up front to their things. Don't come in and pretend or think that like you're just going to solve everything because you know something different. And so I love that partnership and that idea of trying to have both orgs benefit from that interaction. Now, you are prolific, does not necessarily even begin to scratch the surface of your fundraising abilities. You have raised millions of dollars for various causes, such as healthcare disparities, affordable housing. For other leaders in our audience, what are some of your top tips for honing a story that really motivates others to contribute to a cause?
Well, that's just so like, I have a distinct advantage of the industry that I play in. So my whole industry is about causes, and I get to pick which ones sing to me. And my entire career is based on identifying organizations that I want to work for because I have a connection to it. And that really helps me get excited about the work, to be able to craft the story that is ultimately going to lead to someone wanting to support the organization. And I got to tell you, I rarely ask for money. Rarely. I sit there and I talk, and I want to get people to share what they're interested in. And if from a storytelling perspective, you need to have that attachment, that but you have to be willing to be vulnerable. One of the things that was very surprising to me about the stories that people were telling for the It Gets Better project was that it's scary. And putting yourself on camera, saying something that is incredibly vulnerable, something that you may not have shared with other people, it puts you in an uncomfortable situation. But it's those situations that elicit the greatest emotional responses and are more likely to connect you to your audience. And so I would say that if you are sort of in sort of like the corporate space and you don't have that connection, that personal connection, you need to get representation at the table to help you tell those stories. Because unless you have that personal connection, you're just going to be pandering. And even with the best of intentions, it comes across as manufactured. So you really need representation at the table from the audience you're trying to reach, so you can find ways to connect on that deeply emotional level.
Yes. Oh, I'm loving all of this. Brian, thank you so much. We're getting responses in the chat as well. Lisa said, I love the advice to focus on a few things rather than all the things. Lisa says this is something that they struggle with. We also had an early comment from Amber Curio saying that if something only helps one person, it's worth it. And I can't agree strongly enough with this. It's wonderful. In the last 2 minutes we have, can you let us know, what can people do to support the It Gets Better project? Where can they keep tabs on what y'all are doing? What do you want our audience to leave here with?
Well, we have a website, itgetsbetter.org. Remember the org. But we have a lot of programming this month for Pride, and tomorrow we're going to have an Instagram live later in the afternoon, and we just launched a new talk show on Twitch called Perfectly Queer. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with Twitch. If you are in the gaming space, you probably have heard of it, but that's also going to be in the afternoon. And I would just recommend that you check out our website for the timing of that and where it's going to be playing in your time zone. But yeah, we've got that content tomorrow coming out, and we'll be at New York Pride at the end of the month. So if you're in New York, we will be there. So, or look me up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah,
well, I'm definitely going to reach
with anybody.
Yeah, of course. I will absolutely be reaching out. I cannot wait to see what comes next from the It Gets Better project. It is truly one of those amazing organizations that I just love to see succeed, love to see y'all grow. So thank you so much, Brian, for taking time out of your day to be with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Beck.